Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I am your host. And I have a very special guest on today. She is hailing all the way from across the pond over in the UK. I want to welcome my new friend, Jolene Trister, to the show. Jolene, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You know, I can't say your name without thinking of that song.
The Dolly Parton one.
Yeah.
Get it all the time. Everyone's like, have you heard that song? I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm named after. I don't think my dad thought that through. Not really.
Was it your dad that named you?
Yeah, he was at a karaoke party. My mum went into labor early with me and he was drunk at a karaoke party and she let him pick the name. He didn't have one. And somebody had just been singing Jolene, and I was like, "Oh, great! That's awesome." That is a drunken story.
That's the reason.
That is literally the reason. Yeah, there's not like some profound Dolly Parton wisdom or a fan or anything. It's just somebody who was singing the bloody song. So it's like,
oh my gosh,
awesome. Yeah, so that's how the name came about. So yeah, I've had it pretty much every day since I've been born.
Oh my gosh, every day?
Well, say every day. That's a bit extreme, isn't it? It's not every day, but from most people that I meet, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny. So, well, thank you for coming on the show. We met through our mutual friend Glenn Morshower.
We did,
and Glenn is an incredible human for sure, and I think he feels the same way about you. So, you know, I think I told you I started this show a couple years ago to help people have a breakthrough in life and get unstuck and all of that. And I'd like to start with where you were born and raised. I mean, you kind of started a little bit, I don't want to say rough, but like you were named after somebody singing a song at a karaoke bar.
Basically, yeah. And you know, the song itself is it can be a bit challenging at times, right? Because of what it's about somebody running off with this woman called Jolene. I'm like, yeah, you've not thought this through, have you? To my dad, you know, it's just, yeah, I was born in a really small little town in Yorkshire in the UK, which is where I'm living.
Okay.
Where I'm from. And both my parents were very much into the kind of spiritual scene, but back then in the 80s, I was born in the early 80s, and it wasn't as widely accepted, all of that, like it is today. You know, obviously it's just like kind of become quite the norm, whereas back then it wasn't. It was deemed as, certainly where we lived, it was classed as like the devil's work and that kind of thing. So I grew up, it was quite strange really, because they were not like the hippie kind of parents. They were very down to earth. They both had jobs. I mean, they were working 3 jobs and very much around helping teach us as kids that, you know, there's more to life, but we didn't have like much money or anything. So it was a real, like my childhood was, I'm very lucky to have had such a lovely family. I'm sorry if you can see the mess of, I'm in my bedroom at the minute because I'm lockdown still.
I don't see it.
You'll have to just forgive that, because it's like, where the hell do you go when there's a load of you cramped into your house and you know, decide to take a day trip out to the loo. Anyway, just coming back to this.
To the what?
The toilet. The toilet. We call it the loo. You're going to hear some British things. The loo.
The loo.
The loo. Yeah, the toilet.
I thought that was something in France.
Oh no. It's quite common. It's quite a common word here. But yeah, it was an interesting, you know, like my childhood. I was very lucky because I had some very strong women who brought me up, which was fantastic. And obviously my parents. Yeah. But say that, you know, they worked jobs, but they're very much into the spiritual vibe. So I did grow up with an awareness of like, you've got, you know, there's other things in the world. There's guides, there's angels, this kind of thing. It wasn't forced onto us, but it was just an awareness. So like my brother and sister, I've got an older brother and sister, and they're not really too much that bothered into it kind of thing. Yeah. They didn't really go down that path. Whereas myself, I tried to get away from that path many times, especially being like a rebellious teenager and being off the rails a bit, because I've always been a bit rebellious, especially at school. And I remember one of my earliest memories was about 10 years old. So this is when I was going to school, and I just remember seeing it and thinking, this is all a load of crap. Like, I don't understand this system. And that was at like 10. So, it's kind of like I had this very inquisitive mind, always questioning everything. Yeah. And I used to say to my teachers, what do you actually enjoy your job? And they'd obviously be a bit challenged to say, well, you can't ask me that. But I would. And I was like, well, I don't want to, because they'd ask you at school, what do you want to do? Like when you leave school. And I didn't fit in any of those categories, because I thought I don't want to do any of these things, because nobody seems like really that happy in any of it. So I was always on this quest, really, of looking what was more in life. Like I'm still on this quest, by the way. Obviously, we're always like kind of learning as we're still alive, I guess. But like learning more about life. And so my upbringing was, it was a very humble one. Like I say, we didn't have much money growing up. And that used to confuse me a lot with the spiritual stuff, because my parents would go and they'd stand on platforms in these spiritualist churches, which back then, that's where you could go and talk and, see people, and you still can these days. I don't know, I'm not really involved in that. But they would share messages and things. And then we would get really devout Christians knocking at the door and saying, this is the work of the devil. And I'd be telling them to like, F off, which had been like 10 years old. You can imagine how that went down, things spawned of the devil kind of thing. And I couldn't understand people being so like
spawn of the devil. Is that what you said?
Yeah, because it's like
you're like, I'm trying to use the loo. Leave me alone.
It's like, you just fuck off at 10 years old. So obviously that didn't go down too well.
Okay, we just went past the PG rating.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so it's been a really fascinating ride, and I didn't want to get stuck in this sort of spiritual world, if you will, because it felt to me like something was missing, because I didn't understand why my parents never had any money, even though they were working 3 jobs each. I didn't understand that. Yet my grandparents, my mum's parents, they had their own businesses and they'd worked non-stop their entire life. So I was quite lucky insofar as I spent time with them. They wasn't rich in that sense, but they were certainly better off than we were as a family. And my mum did provide. I mean, they gave us everything they could. But what I didn't understand is, how come if you're healing people and that you're speaking to angels, how come we've got no money and we can't live? I used to say that to my parents, and I bless them. They must have been like, oh my God, what are we doing?
Can you get the angels to bring us some cash?
It's like, what I would be like, as a teenager, I was probably a nightmare with this stuff. I was like, well, if that works, why are we struggling for money? Like that kind of thing. And so I decided to kind of wash my hands of it. I was like, I don't know what to do this. This is rubbish. I don't understand how this can be a thing. But you, as you know yourself, like when you're on this path, your own path, you will get called back into whatever you're meant to do. So no matter how many times you're trying to go off path or trying to find this other way, we get called back in through experiences in life, through trauma, through trauma, through just everyday human experiences. And that's what I found. So it was when I was about 18, 19, I really got back into it, because I was questioning life again. I ended up working in the National Health Service, in management, not doing a nurse's role, because I literally, if I see blood, I'd just pass out. I'm crap at that stuff. I'm not good.
So it wasn't a good fit.
I didn't train as a nurse. I worked in the offices, but I met some of the most genuinely wonderful people during my time working in the National Health Service. Like, honestly, they are earth angels. There's no doubt about it. So I was trying to understand that I met healers and so forth, some amazing people, but some not so good. And I didn't understand why there was this need to, for them to say, well, I'm an earth angel, like pronouncing it, when I was genuinely, what I felt was meeting who were what I felt were earth angels and working all hours, not necessarily getting paid for it, and sitting with patients and spending that time with them when they didn't have to do that. That to me is like an earth angel. So I thought, there's some discrepancies here. There's something that feels a little bit off. So it was just kind of navigating my way through this path and trying to see where I fit in and what can I offer. So when I left the National Health Service, I ended up starting a business with my ex-husband. I've got a son to him who's now 14. And, at the time I was learning a lot about, it's when The Secret came out. That was 2006 was when my son was born. The Secret came out. And I remember people being like, this is like this massive secret and blah, 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 blah. And it made sense to me, because I felt like it was part of a missing key of the stuff I didn't get, like around creating your own sort of reality, creating your own wealth, your mindset, which is a huge one. And it was almost like the start of this whole new journey, even though it was things that had been taught about that was perhaps in books that I grew up with, but just didn't really care about. I wasn't even interested in really looking at it. But yet it was there the whole time. And that's what it felt like. So it was just kind of coming back full circle. And something just clicked for me when I read that. And everything kind of just stemmed from there. And I'm not saying it was just because of the film The Secret. There was many, many other things that I was brought up with and around. But that just seemed to hit home at a time when I needed it. And so that's when things started to change. And then I watched a film called Conversations with God.
Oh, Neil Donald Walsh.
Yeah. So what happened here? This is a synchronistic, absolutely incredible experience.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of narrowing it down to the sort of moments of what led me to kind of where I am now. And at that time, I'd watched The Secret, and then my sister gave me a copy of Conversations with God. And I remember saying, if this is religious, I don't want to watch any of this. This is like, I'm not interested. Like, I just, that's how I felt at the time when she gave me it. Right. I'm like, that's not for me. And
because what, hold on. You're slow down, Jolene.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can talk for England, and I do. I will.
You're cracking me up. So I want to go back to the resentment about your name. I'm just kidding.
I haven't got time for that. There's all the dad issues. How dare you?
No, how old are you at this point that you're in the Secret? So you're not even.
Oh God, don't ask me questions like that. I'm crap at maths. How old would I be? 24. I'm 38 now.
Okay.
So yeah, 24.
So,
yeah.
And you're talking to angels. Were you talking to angels back then?
I have talked and shouted and sworn at my angels many times. I feel like we have many different forms of beings. So, I don't want to just say, oh, it's just angels. But when I was little, I grew up with, I was told there are angels, and there's other things, like with Reiki. My parents were both trained in Reiki and stuff. So that to me was just part of, like we had medicines, and so it wasn't like they were completely hippie, because there wasn't. People wouldn't know that unless they saw them speaking at the spiritualist churches and came knocking at our door to be rudely told to, do one. So it was more of just coming back, because I can go off tangent and I don't want to do that. So with regards to the Conversations with God scenario, that I didn't know what that was. So this would have been not long after The Secret. So it had been probably towards the end of 2010.
Yeah.
Around that time when I watched it.
Okay.
I watched that. So I didn't read the books. I watched the film.
Right.
I watched the film and I was in tears. I mean, like floods of tears, like something just came over me. And I just felt moved. I can't explain what that film did for me. So just pause it there a second.
Okay.
Roll on to a year later. I am then talking to and having conversations with the producer of that film, who's Stephen Simon.
Wow.
And being mentored by Neil. So
you were mentored by Neil Donald Walsh?
Yeah, he did the afterword for my book. There's a lot, because we haven't properly spoken yet, have we? So there's probably a lot.
We haven't.
You just know about the magazine. So this is going back to before the magazine, about my life and what I was doing. Yeah. So I was in his mentoring group. It was a group. And then we had one-to-one phone calls. That was in the space of, I want to say like a year, but I'd have to go back and check this. I'm sure it's roughly around that time. But from watching that film, literally, when I say in floods of tears, I was on my knees. Like I just felt something moved in me like that. Like something shifted in my soul. That film was so powerful for me. And I can't describe why. It's one of those moments which is a breakthrough. And that was my biggest breakthrough at that point.
Wow.
There were other things that happened before then, but we won't go into that because there's no point of doing that, because I want to focus on this, because this was this really kick-started things for me. Because I had worked with a lady who teaches all about intuition a couple of years prior to that, which helped me on my path. But I don't want to go too much into that story because it takes us away from this, which was the main breakthrough. So it was through a series of synchronistic events since watching that film, but like everything in my life had been leading to it. It's just I kept refusing to go there. Does that make sense? Like anytime an opportunity was presented to me, I just felt like I'm not ready for it. So with my ex-husband, when I left the NHS, the National Health Service, I set up a software company. Well, it was mainly his. It was his because he writes. I mean, he's a genius with software.
Right.
And I've always been able to see. I don't know why. I've just always been able to do it like the bigger outcome with people. So I could see what they could potentially do, not with every single person, but just if I see that there's something that could really sort of, be amazing for the world. And I saw it with him as soon as we first met. And he worked for somebody else because he didn't have that confidence to leave. Gotcha. But then lots of things happened. So Daniel, my son, was tiny, just newborn baby. So we needed the money. We didn't have any savings. We didn't have nothing. And so at the time, I'd said to him, I would give up that job and focus on this product. So like I said, with no money, no investment, no nothing. Wow. I think we had like £50. So like, $70 or whatever that equates to. That was it. Yeah. He set up this company and his friend bought it, and it's software for cars. So when you take your cars to, I don't know what you call it there, but we take it to a garage here. And so it gets checked over like an MOT or whatever.
What do you take it? You take it where?
To a garage, like to
we call that a garage here.
Oh well, tomato, it's like it's it's a garage here. Anyway, so it's software where you take your car, right? So I literally that's not a passion for me, right? So just taking it, but I had, when I worked in the NHS, I worked in the office, I worked in management, and I wanted to go to university at school, but we never had any money. And that wasn't an option then like it is now. It just wasn't. Yeah. So I ended up putting myself through university when I was in my job role in the NHS. Wow. So I'd actually been to university and I was studying about leadership. That was my thing. And I did a degree in health management and administration. So I did all that and I finished it, and I actually graduated basically just after I'd had Daniel. So it was all a bit of a strange time because I didn't really need it after that, because obviously with working with my ex-husband. So what we did is we set up this software company. And so that was in 2006. It's still going, it's his. And we grew that from literally like one customer. And now it's one of the leading software providers for garages in the UK. Wow. But I'm not part of that, right? So, but the reason I'm sharing that with you is because leaving the NHS, which was my security, and having a job, a 9-to-5 job, was my security. And I'd always had jobs from leaving school, even though I was rebellious and a bit of a bugger, really. But I was, I still always had jobs because I wanted the money to be able to buy the things I wanted to do, to buy. So when I left the NHS, which was my security net, and leaving that and starting this software company, because I knew how to put things into place. So I was like building the back end of it, how to structure the company, how to do that, even though I hadn't done it before. But in my job within the health service, I had to structure the departments and, rotating different staffs, all different kinds of things, which I just thought, if I apply everything I've just learned from my last job and from my degree, plus using the laws of the universe, this is going to be phenomenal. Right. Like he wasn't into any of this. Like this wasn't his thing. He didn't get it. He wasn't bothered, but he just said, go and do your thing. And, let's see if it works. And I was like, and it did, it really did work. Right. And it showed me that this was the missing thing that I was looking for as a kid. And so something just moved, but I didn't feel passionate anymore because that wasn't my thing. I didn't want to do it. That wasn't where my soul felt alive, So this was before the conversations with God.
Oh, that was before. Okay.
This was before it, right? So we had, because my ex-husband doesn't come from a money background either. Right. He's doing really well now, like really, really well now. I'm so happy for him because it's everything he wanted to do. Yeah. And so now he's got I don't know how many staff, and it's incredible what he's done. So I worked there for quite a few years, and then I just knew I didn't want to be with him anymore because, well, life happens, and we just wasn't a match anymore. I met him really young. And it just wasn't happening. But we worked well in business. But I felt lost because it's like I knew I had all this, and I loved, one of the things I'd always been doing is helping, so intuition's been a really important part of my life, as I think it is for everybody.
Yep.
And to me, it's just natural. It's just part of life, like it's standard. And I guess I probably took that for granted quite a lot and assumed that people were probably tapping into theirs more and trusting that, till I realized people not really doing that.
They're not.
And I didn't see how that was a gift. I just didn't see it. But
Right.
I've always helped people, even like when I worked in the National Health Service, I was giving guidance to all people like who asked me. I wasn't just like kind of going around going, well, I can see your uncle. I wasn't doing that. It was like, if somebody asked me, I would share that with them, right?
You said, I can see your uncle? Is that what you said?
No, I wouldn't do that. But, you know, some people are like, I can see your uncle. I'm feeling a meal with you. And you're like, fuck off, I didn't ask you for any, like, so to me, I'm quite funny about that. I don't like when people just invade space like that. Yeah. I don't think we should do it. So I hadn't met anybody who was, I say, quote unquote, normal, who understood this. And I felt really lost. So I thought, I don't want to go back into corporate work, because I saw how unlimited things can be by applying these things from what I'd learned. Because I went on a mission about learning all about the laws of the universe and about about personal development. I went on a bit of a mission with that, reading every book that I could get hold of, then feeling conflicted because some of it was contradicting one another. So I was a bit lost. But when I watched Conversations with God, because this is coming back around to that, something in my soul moved, but I couldn't make sense of it. But I knew I was meant to feel that.
And this was during the movie, or
this was during watching the movie. There was
what was it though? Was there anything that happened or he said, or
I felt that the film was so strong. Like I could feel the energy from that film. Like I could feel what it was about. I went into that movie expecting it to be extremely religious, even though somebody told me it wasn't. And I was resisting it so much. And that's when I know I need to watch or learn something. If I'm resisting, it's like, not in a warning sense of don't do it, but in a, why am I not doing it kind of thing? Because I thought, I don't want to, instead of being open-minded. And so when I sat down and watched it and listened to his story, and because it was a true story of his life, and because of how real he was on there and how they shared his story, so I thought it was fantastically written. I thought, you know, it was just beautiful. And bringing that to the screen, movies can change, I feel, can change your entire world. It can really help move things. Like, I'm a very visual person, so I do enjoy watching films or documentaries. And I feel like the way that was written about how, you know, Neil had in his life had gone from being homeless, gone through countless relationships, to not knowing what his purpose was, to then all of a sudden, you know, then he's selling these books about knowledge from listening to his, you know, source, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever fits, because I think everybody has their own version of that.
Right.
It made me feel like all of these feelings I'd been feeling for all of these years about my intuition and speaking to different guides, it made me feel like this is something that can be helpful, but I didn't know what to do with it. So it was more of a case of me owning my own gifts and me saying, you know what, there is something I can do with this. There is something I can share. And to see him go through that, and I felt like the movie for me, it took me on a journey. And that's what I loved about it. I thought it was spectacular. I really did, the way it was done.
Was this in a theater you watched this?
No, it was at home. It was just at home.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. On my own. I was completely on my own.
Okay.
Daniel was the baby. He was being looked after at that time. So it's like my downtime, if you will. So some just, you know, I was like, right, I'm going to watch that film. I absolutely dedicated, you know, that time to do it. And so it moved me in a sense of, when I realized the messages that was coming through for him, I just thought, this is incredible, like how that's moved his life.
Yeah.
And what an amazing example. I mean, it's sad what he had to go through, but it's not putting him on a pedestal. I don't think it's healthy for us to put people on pedestals. And I think that's something that's really come to my attention since being around. Like I said, I grew up with a lot of the mind, body, spirit stuff. And I feel like there has to be some groundedness in it, because otherwise it can put people off, in a sense of, if we're putting people on pedestals, we are then giving our power away. because we're feeling like they've got something we perhaps haven't got. So yes, be inspired by people, absolutely, 100% be inspired, but being mindful and careful, not for us to give our power away to thinking that they have something. So what I loved about Neil was the fact that he was so grounded and down to earth, and he really was, by the way. So like when I was being mentored by him, I couldn't believe just how grounded he was. Like I don't know what I was expecting. And the fact I even got into that program, there was something had happened. I won't go into it because I know that we haven't got that long to talk. But something had happened.
First off, this is the internet. Second, it's my show. Third, right. We got whatever it takes. So
we're going to keep you on here all night till like, obviously it's 4:30 my time. So we're another 6 now, kidding. I went to, so quickly then, how this, it was divine synchronicity. I truly believe that. But from a practical, well, how did it actually happen sense? I was invited to an event. It was a Hay House event in 2010. So that must have been when I first, so 2010. And whilst I was there, I was in a queue to go and get a book signed or something or other. And it was a big queue. And this is in London. And there was a guy in front of me. And I have a card deck, by the way. I used to. I still have it, but I don't like sell them or anything anymore. But at the time, I just created an oracle card deck. It's something I really, really wanted to do. It's a dream of mine.
Yeah.
And I had the card deck. It was done, and I was excited. I was going to show my friend. I was in this queue, so I had my card deck in my hand, and there was a guy in front, and he turned around. He was an American guy. He turned around and he saw my card deck. You know, I was really excited. It was a really good event. I was just chatting away, and he said, "Oh, I didn't see those on the table." It was in where people were selling, you know, with the Hay House authors. And I said, "Oh, that's because it's mine." And my intuition said, "Give him the card deck." Right. But I actually did need this card deck. So I needed to give it to a friend of mine. And I only had that one left. Right. So my intuition was saying, give him the card deck. I was like, so my mind was saying, I don't know this man. I don't know who he is. Don't do it. But it was such a strong impulse. I gave him the card deck.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought any more of it apart from like sometimes my intuition will say something in my mind. It's like a little devil and an angel, right? Yep. So the angel's saying, give him no, it doesn't talk like that. It's really soft. It's like, give him the card deck. Then my devil's like, well, that was stupid.
Right.
Now what are you going to do? Right. So that's the sort of groundedness, right? Listening to that, both sides. So I was kind of trusting it, but at the same time going, well, was that a stupid bloody thing to do? Because now my friend's not going to get this deck and they're waiting for it. And I was like, I'll send them one. It's fine. Turns out, so I never heard anything from this guy again, by the way, at that point. So we didn't talk anymore. He was seen, got his book signed, left that. The next day I got an email from him, and he was Neil's facilitator for all of his events. I didn't know that. I'm still friends with him to this day. So what's the chances of that in London, right? And Neil wasn't there. Like, what was that about? Like, he was based in Paris, but he's American.
What's a queue? You said you were in a queue.
Oh, so a line then. So if you're in a store, we're a bit like that in the UK. We expect people to queue. Like, if you're in a store and you're waiting to buy someone, you get in that queue. You don't push in. Otherwise, we might just give you a very dirty look of how dare you do that.
Right.
So a queue is in the line.
A line.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you call it?
I'm just trying to get I got to tell you something before I forget. My 9-year-old daughter walks around the house all day, like talking in a British accent. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop.
We don't talk like my husband. He's Cockney, and he does talk proper Cockney. So like London, like as in what you hear on the films with like Oliver Twist. I'm from up north, so I have a bit of a different accent.
Yeah.
So sometimes people are like, what's that? But yeah, I will get that. I've got quite a few friends over in America, but I have to remember to, with the sayings, we have different sayings here, but we have a lot of fun with that, especially when I'm over in the States. So I do have a lot of fun with it. But so that synchronicity was, if I hadn't have given if I'd have listened to that voice of don't do it, because literally I didn't have any more and my friend was expecting this deck.
Yeah.
Then I'd have missed that entire opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think this is why like the intuition thing is such an important part for me, because, and I haven't always listened to it. And when I haven't, I've usually experienced, times when I call them mini bitch slaps, a bit like, well, you should have listened to that.
Right.
You know, and then they get bigger.
Yeah.
So I realized that this was something that I could teach, was about my intuition. So when I was being mentored by Neil, I had my card deck, and I think I'd mentioned obviously about my card deck, and it was going to be made into a book because somebody had said to me, can you make it into a book? So he said to me, would you like me to do the foreword for it? Like, how can I help you? Well, I hadn't planned that. I was thinking, because I was like, wow, this is absolutely incredible. So I said, there's another lady who I was working with at the time who'd offered to do it. And I said, I've already got, and he knows her. So I said, I've already got a lady to do it. So he said, well, let me do the afterword. So he did the afterword for the book, which is the book form of the card deck.
You turned Neil Donald Walsh down to write the foreword for your book.
Well, yeah, but it's not like, that sounds like really bad, but no, it's, well, there's a few things I could go into with that stuff, but there's a few that I have many opportunities which I have messed up, and I wish I hadn't. But yeah, there was that one. I'm glad that happened, even though I didn't really do anything with this book.
Right.
So that book is shelved at the minute, and it's a sad thing, really. But that's what happened to it. It didn't feel I put basically. What I realized with the mind, body, spirit industry, it's quite a small world, and it seemed to me like it was a little bit cliquey, in a sense of, if you're in the group, you're in the group. Yeah. I wasn't in the group, and I didn't feel like I wanted to be in a hierarchy at that point. Like I just don't. I feel like information should be available to everybody, and I was struggling with where I fit in. And so at the time, it was like, if you're not published, then what do you do? Whereas now it's very much about self-publishing. But back in 2010, it was in before then. It was 2008.
Right.
Was when I decided that I'd research how to make a card deck, because at the time Doreen Virtue was the main person doing it. But don't get me onto her, because I'm not keen on that woman now. But just anyway, at the time, I'm grateful for the fact that she did that, because I researched into it, and I looked and I thought, I'm sure I can make this myself, having done products with software before. So I did. So I didn't know how to do it. I just learned along the way. And so this is how the card deck came about. But it led me on to other things, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing when I left the software company. Was mainly, I'd been giving readings, intuitive readings, since I was really little. It just came naturally to me, and helping people from all walks of life. And what I loved about Neil was the fact that he seemed so genuine and from the heart. And I do believe he is, from what I've experienced with him. And that refreshed things for me. It gave me some faith back in the industry, which I feel has been missing a little bit, because I don't want to just call in. I don't feel I'm here to do that. But my bullshit detector, Ken, is off the scale. And Glenn and I talk about this regularly, about the bullshit detector. He gets it. Like when we have conversation, we just get it. We know. And there is a lot of that in all industries. But I struggled with that within this one. So I used to write a lot for different magazines, and a lot of the magazines I wrote for, they have other magazines, right? So it's a publishing house. They're a business at the end of the day. But I felt like the heart and soul was missing from that, because it just seemed like, well, we'll just get any information. That's just my observation. We'll get any information we can. So it just didn't, when I'd read these magazines, like I was happy to contribute, and I felt really honored to be able to contribute. And, I've done lots of talks. I was doing, especially around 2012, 2013, doing lots and lots of talks. I did a TV pilot for a show, and thank God they never put that out, because it'd have been hugely embarrassing with Channel 4. It would have been really embarrassing. I did do some work before on a psychic channel over here on one of our channels, and I just thought I didn't want to do that. It didn't feel like it was being genuine. It didn't feel, in a sense of how they were promoting it. I didn't want to be. It felt like it was missing the authenticity of it, and that's really important to me. Yeah. So it's been like a bit of a crazy journey of trying to find where can we have some amazing people. Like, I met so many amazing people on my journey, incredible people, some well-known, some not known at all. And I felt like I wanted to have somewhere where we could all be, like on a platform, where I just felt like it was really missing, and I kept trying to look for it. And that's how I ended up creating this one with the Raw Real Being magazine. So that's, in a nutshell.
Well, say that now. I don't think, just for my American friends watching, say that again. What's the name of it? Slower.
Raw R-A-W,
R-A-W,
real,
real,
as in being real,
yeah,
being, B-E-I-N-G.
raw,
Real.
real being. And
Yes.
that is, what is that?
That is my online platform. Ultimately, it's a magazine.
Let me ask you. So you obviously you went through school, you went through high school, graduated. As a kid, because I can relate to the what do you call it? The being a rebel. It sounds like you were a bit of a rebel, like
I
fighting.
was.
Yeah.
I was, but not. I could have been a lot worse.
Did you ever have one of the things, like with me personally, I'm always like, you're teaching me out of a book that's like 40 years old. And what makes you where did this originate? Where did the thoughts start? Did you ever think like that? Like, where did this originate? Like,
yeah,
the first
100%.
person to go 1 + 1 is 2. Who was that? And why did they decide that it was 2?
Well, I like with school, I always felt like, yes, there's certain things we do need to learn. So I understand that. And I think the socialization part, yeah, I love that. So like being able to read and write, that's important.
Yeah.
But what I didn't like is that we were ultimately memorizing
Right.
a whole load of shit that we're being taught to memorize. And that's what we're getting tested on. So because I've always had an interest in, like, my thing is question everything. Seriously.
Right.
Like, always question everything. And because then you start to get your own awareness, and you'll know, because you'll feel it, or some people feel it, some people know it, some people get just a knowing, or that sense, or the hear stuff. Like, it's about getting in touch with those other senses that are numbed down purposely throughout the education system, because I do feel they are. Because nobody, like, I did feel an outcast, because something, and the only way I can describe it is something in my bones. So in my very bones, in my being, felt like it's been screaming out since being a child. This just feels, something's wrong, like something's off.
Right.
Something's off. And not in a way where I felt depressed or anything like that. It was more of a sense of, I don't fit in, because I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to. By the way, I did train as a lawyer for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. Like, so much respect for them, but I can't do it. I got up in one of the classes and walked out when they said about law school. Like, honestly, law school. What the hell am I talking about? About criminal law. I remember he said to the teacher at college, said, if you cannot stand up and represent somebody, your client, who you know is a convicted rapist or murderer, and you can't stand by them and represent them, then leave. This isn't for you. So I went, bye, I'm off. That was it. It was done. Literally. And everybody went, you haven't just done that. I went, I fucking have. I'm not doing this.
You literally
walked out. Yeah. And that was it. Then I left. Of course, I didn't have a job, because I was training. I was working as a legal secretary, because I wanted to. I thought, I don't know. I was just trying different things, because anything I wanted to, like, honestly, I felt I'd worked in retail. I'd worked in a travel agent for a little while. That was good, because I enjoyed looking for holidays, and that helps now, or vacations as you call them. But I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. So the whole system, the education system, still to this day, to me, feels skewy. It doesn't feel right. I could go on a right agenda here with conspiracy theories and that kind of stuff, but I don't want to do that. Well, because one, I'd probably get shot, and two, I want to live. So it's like,
they don't. How would you get shot? You don't even have guns in the UK.
But do they can? Do they? That's the question. No, I'm kidding. It's this thing where it's like, I do believe that we're being suppressed as humans and our greatest abilities. Yeah. The reason I believe that is because of my own journey, listening to my family and seeing how mentally we are kept in a certain place so that we don't start exploring and using our gifts, our talents, the things that we have. You know, I feel like we're taught to feel like we need something else, or to feel like we're not good enough. So of course, we're easy targets for being sold utter crap or products that we don't need, you know, because it's like, it will give you this, it will make you feel better. I'm not saying all products like that. I'm just saying there's a lot of things going on which have had to come to our attention, I think. And like, especially with this whole lockdown thing right now, it's really making people prioritize. Like, really, do I need this? Do I need to buy this crap? Certainly with me, like, you know, one thing I have enjoyed doing and sometimes still do is shopping, you know, like kind of, but then question, why am I doing that? Why am I doing? Is it something I actually need or want? Does it make me feel good? If it does, hell yeah, I'll do it. But it's this place where I have watched so many different documentaries, and I'm talking from when I was like 18. So that's a lot of years worth of, you know, to watch.
You're only 27.
20, I'm 38.
I was trying to be kind.
I know, but I can't believe, I was talking to my husband about this, and I genuinely can't believe I'm 38. I don't feel 38. I feel about 500 years old. Seriously, of all my lives I've lived here. I'm like, what are we doing with our planet? Seriously. But that aside, it's this thing where I think we've got an opportunity right now. Like, so people who, you know, losing their jobs, or they're in a position where they've heavily been dependent upon ultimately creating wealth for someone else, is an opportunity. But it might not feel like that at the time, because if we're in fear, it can feel like hell, and it can, and it does. So it's, how do we go from that scary, oh my God, what am I going to do, to what about if we really just took some time to like listen? Because I do believe our intuition and that voice is always talking to us, always. And I feel it's always there. Doesn't mean to say we bloody listen to it, but it's there. So it's, are we willing to listen to that? And what has been whispering to you? What's your intuition whispering? Because I don't feel like it shouts at us, but I think it's a way to listen and to go, okay, so what is it that you really want to do? Because if we're in a place now, and again, there's two schools of thoughts with this, because probably a lot more than that. We can look at this and go, yeah, actually, you know what? I want to do this project. I want to create something that I would maybe never normally look at, because it's like we've just been paused. Yeah. That's one part. Then there's another side of me that's going, these bloody morons, they've locked us in. Is this virus even bloody real? Which I do think it is a virus, by the way. But then part of me is like, I think it's been genetically made, and I think it's a way to contain people. And blah. So it's this battle sometimes. It can feel like that, or the misinformation that we're being given. There was somebody who posted a video. It's fantastic. It's gone viral, and it's a lady, and she's saying, she's an American lady, and she's saying, with the, you know, you got all the little microphones, so she's a news reporter, and she's like, right, okay, so you can wear a mask. No, don't wear a mask. You can go out, but you're not going out. And I thought, because we've got so much misinformation. So now more than ever is a great time to, as much as you can, like, listen to that inner voice. What's it telling you? Because I feel like we're taught to ignore that. Like, there's nowhere at school or in the education system that we're taught to, oh, you know what? We have all of these different senses that we can use. That's always been there since we've been here. Yeah. And we have an incredible system, like, where we can actually connect with one another, and we don't have to be speaking, and we can listen to that. There's something bigger, whatever you want to call it, or a divine intelligence, whatever you know, everyone's got their own version of that, that ultimately we can be looking at how we can use these different, you know, incredible gifts, and looking at nature, which has all of these. I got to interrupt. For those that are just joining, this is Jolene, and yes, she was named after the song Dolly Parton song, because her dad was at a karaoke party the moment she was born into this world, and he showed up drunk. He was drunk. Yeah. Drunk at the hospital. Yeah. And said, "Let's name her Jolene." Yeah, basically, yes. That's it. That's my story. That's it. Her journey. I kind of love the story. I just got to say it. But Neil Donald Walsh is a friend of yours, a mentor. He's not he's not a friend. He was a mentor. Oh. Yeah. So no, he was a mentor. He was somebody who was on my journey. But he mentored me, and he did the afterword for my book, and which is shelved. Well, that sounds like a friend to me. It's not somebody I ring up and go, "Hey Neil, how are you doing?" You know, I mean, I helped him with a few things after that. Like but I tell you, I'm friends with the lady who runs his, she's the director now of the Conversations with God school, I think it is. She's awesome. She'd be a great guest for you. Honestly, she's such a lovely, lovely person.
Wow.
So yeah, she's fantastic. I met a lot of lovely people through him, but no, he's not a friend like somebody I'd ring or anything like that. No, but he was definitely an incredible help on my journey. And again, this is back in 10 years ago, 2010. How is it 2020?
I know.
So it's one of these where there are breakthroughs there, but I think it's also important to share the other side of it, right? So it's that could have been an amazing book, right? You'd expect it had everything around it, but that's why I like to be really authentic and real, to show you that actually it didn't turn out to be anything. It didn't. It's shelved. Nothing's happening with it.
You didn't publish it?
No. It was self-published through a department called Balboa Press, which was part of Hay House. And I was messed about a little bit, and I just wasn't happy with how they were doing things. So do you know what? I just said, so it was a self-publishing department. It wasn't through them, but it was their self-publishing department. And it just was costing me money. And I felt like it was losing what I wanted to do with it. So even though it was self-published, I was still limited as to what I could do. And so I thought, if I published my own card deck, why am I not just doing it myself? But there was a lot of emotion around it, and it felt like there was too much attachment. I felt it was the best thing to do, is to just not do anything with it. I think I was rebelling against myself, to be quite honest, because I was like, well, sod it, I'm not doing it. But I think it's important to share that, because otherwise, if we're not hearing these sorts of stories where it's like, I created a project, but nothing came of it, it can give false hope to people. So I like to be really down to earth and real about it, and just to say, I did do it. There was everything there to say it would be amazing, but it wasn't, because I don't feel that was my journey. I don't feel like I was meant to go on and be an author and doing this, that, and the other. At that point, who knows? Maybe in 10 years' time, maybe that is, and maybe I'll be going, oh, do you remember when I did that interview with Ken, and I was saying I wasn't going to be an author, and well, now look, ha ha. I don't think that's my journey, because I love doing the magazine, and what I realize is I love having conversations, and I love giving people a platform, so that they can share their story, and also something global, because my friends are all over the world. Like they genuinely are. The people I've met through attending various workshops, courses. I mean, Ken, honestly, I've been to some crazy, silly, ridiculous, awful, and amazing things, and throughout those adventures and journeys, I've met some incredible people. And now I realize that they're part of my life, and how could I bring these incredible people together? And that was how that came about. And I felt alive. I didn't feel that with the book. I felt I was getting caught up in that. If you've got a best-selling book, then that you've made it. So was that true? Or was that my ego trying to tell me, be a best-selling author?
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be. So that's why I share that about my story, because you would expect it to have a different ending. But I don't feel sad about that, because I realized that that wasn't my path, and I'm okay with that. So
that wasn't your path yet.
I don't feel like that will be something I end up doing, because
really?
I tell you, because when I was doing talks and traveling, and because I was sharing about my cards, right? So I'd get asked to come and speak in the UK, some of the stages here, because I was writing actively about intuition, and I still love sharing about that, by the way.
Yeah.
But I used to blog for the Huffington Post when that was at the time, that was quite a big thing. And I used to really enjoy doing that. So the writing side of things I loved doing. But what I didn't like was these categories that these authors were being put in. And I felt like there was more emphasis on how many books you've sold, as opposed to what's the content of the book. Does that make sense? So I'm more bothered about what is content that I'm putting out there. Well, the book itself is a book version of my cards. So for me, I'm just like, just have the cards. You know what I mean? It's like, why do you need a book? But it's because somebody advised me, and I felt like, because they're in a publishing house, that was the right thing for me to do. But it felt like it was a bit of a waste of time. So if I'd have just listened to my intuition in the first place, we could have avoided all of that. But anyhow, that was part of my journey. So I do think, looking back, when I was doing the talks and stuff on stage, which I did enjoy, don't get me wrong, I love talking, I love doing like live events and stuff. But I felt like I always had a vision. from being about 12 years old. And I used to get it all the time. And that was where it was, I didn't realize, I thought it was me being part of that. I didn't realize it was me putting it together. But it was where it's a big event and there was people, loads of incredible people, but wasn't quite clear who they were, but they're on a stage and they're sharing their stories and there's an audience there and people are just genuinely connecting and feeling like that, you know, I could see it so clearly. And again, this is from being 12 years old, right? So wasn't sure what this was, but I see it so clearly. And I thought it was because I was meant to be one of these, you know, on the stage. I thought that's what it is. But having been on various stages and going and speaking at these places, I just felt like it wasn't lighting me up in the way which I feel what I'm meant to be doing would. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does. And I have a question. I can, first off, I can't believe we've already been on here 51 minutes. That's insane. It feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I do talk a lot though, and very quick. So I'm sorry.
You do talk fast. You could be an auctioneer. So
that could be my calling in life, Ken, as an auctioneer.
I don't think so, but I don't know your path. So, but you know, I would love to hear from your perspective. We'll start with you. Why are you here?
Is in on the planet or on this interview? No, I'm serious. Like, I don't know what.
On the planet. Let's start with on the planet. How about that? The big picture.
Okay, so I feel, and I could be wrong because honestly, like, who knows why any of us are here, right? Isn't that the big question? Why are we here? Like, why are we here?
Right.
I feel like it's a learning place for us as a human being. Like, it's somewhere we can learn. I do feel like we've had many past lives, and I feel like it's about learning from those and learning experiences. So I just think that's just my perception. But ultimately, that is the question. That's the question I'm always asking. Why are we here? Like, what is our purpose? What is the point of being here? And the thing that's always brought me comfort is that passion. Like, when I feel that passion, that knowing that, yes, whether it's meeting somebody and having an amazing conversation, or whether it's noticing something in nature of, oh gosh, this is beautiful. You know, that to me, that lights me up. And it just kind of makes me think, wow, there's so much, I really feel like this planet is beautiful. I do. I think there's so much we can learn from nature. I think there's so much that we've forgotten about as human beings over the years. And that's purposely been miswritten and written out of history altogether.
Yeah.
And so is it perhaps because we're here to discover who we really are and to go beyond anything, like beyond our own blocks, beyond our own ideas or our own maybe perhaps miscreated identities of who we feel we're meant to be? Because how many people are trying to fit in? That was my thing. I was always trying to fit in until I realized, just sod it. I don't need to fit in. I'm just going to be me. There's no preconceived agenda. Yeah. You know, and this was a struggle at times when I was being invited to speak on stages and stuff, Ken, because people wanted to know what my agenda was. If I was to go and talk on stage, and I made this very, very clear, I didn't ever rehearse it. So they wanted to know what I was going to say. I didn't know because it would just come through. It worked. There was never a time that didn't work. But if I was to try and put that into something small, into a box, it would stop it. It would kind of dilute it.
Yeah.
So it's trying to explain that. So for me, why am I here is to learn. What is this life about? You know, how can we enjoy it? How can we make the most of it? What is available to us that perhaps we don't even know about? Like, what's the beauty of life? They're the questions. I think when you start asking questions like that and powerful questions, then you start to open up many, many doors, which perhaps we wouldn't normally.
Right.
Does that make sense?
But so, I mean, the only purpose is to learn? That's boring.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. What is the purpose of life? Isn't that though?
No, I didn't say what's the purpose of life of all humanity.
Why are we here?
Your reason.
What's mine? But again, this is it. I feel like I'm constantly discovering that though. Because if I was to say to you, Kent, look, one thing I know I can give then, how about this? Is I want to be able to give as much love as I can, right? I want to show up and be the best version of me in as many scenarios as I can be. But what am I here to do? What's my purpose for being here in this world is something that I'm constantly asking myself. I don't have a definitive answer for you. And that might sound boring. That might sound like, oh, well, but that's the truth. Like, I am always asking that question. Why am I here? What am I here for? Right now, in this moment of time, is to be able to share as much as I can. So by using this platform I've created, for example.
Yeah.
But we could have a conversation in a year's time, Ken, and it could have completely changed, because one thing I do know about life is that it's always changing. It's always changing. And about being able to go, be free with that.
I remember from the movie The Secret, Neil Donald Walsh has a bit in there where he says, he talks about the chalkboard. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yes, I do. Yes.
Where he's like, God didn't say, this is Neil, a handsome fellow he is, something like that, and his purpose is to blank. He didn't, that he said, and I'm paraphrasing because it's been a while since I saw it, but I remember that part, and I remember thinking, so wait a minute, is Neil saying that my purpose on this planet is not predetermined? Do you think it's predetermined?
I think it's a double-ended sword, is that question. The reason being is because, and this is something that I regularly have conversations about, by the way. Like, it really is. And hi to everybody. And I've seen some some of the comments come up as well on there. This is how I perceive it, because I don't know if that's anything. I don't know if that's something we will get to discover in this lifetime. I don't know. I think we have access to all kinds of technology and information that's purposely being kept from us. So, but I do feel we can connect in through intuition. Like, that is such a, not just intuition, through like there's various other ways we can do it, like remote viewing and things like that, which I know they use that in a lot of the secret services and stuff. But it's like looking at, do we have, and this is where it really can get tricky. You can go down the rabbit hole with this, because if you're looking at like what The Secret's, when I say The Secret, by the way, there's been many, many, many books written before The Secret. Like, one of my favorite books of all time, and it's the one book I refer back to again and again. It's the one book I pick up repeatedly, and it's called The Game of Life and How to Play It, by a lady called Florence Scovel Shinn. And it was written in I think it was 1920. She wrote that book, and it is just phenomenal. It's not a huge book. I love it. I absolutely love it. And so, if we look at the law of attraction and the laws of the universe, would suggest that we're creating every single thing in our life as we go along, everything. My understanding of this, and this is just my perception and understanding, because it's something I've toyed with a lot. I believe that we have certain scenarios in our life. So let's just say there are A, B, C, D, E, F, G being a scenario. So you got scenario A, birth, right? B, say something's happened, or parents divorce, or something like that. Something that's a mark, like something that you can put a mark on in your life. So I think some of these events are predetermined. So scenario A, B, C, D, E, going right throughout your life.
Yeah.
To get from A to B, I feel that we absolutely can influence that. The reason I feel that is because I've done that in my own life. So that's worked for me. It doesn't always work. I'm still learning. I'm still using different tools. There's a lot of contradicting information out there, a lot. So if you find something that works, stick with it. And it's like, so say you've got scenario A to B, just predetermined.
Yeah.
But then how do you get there? You can swim, you can run, you can walk, you can crawl. And I'm using that as obviously a metaphor. And that's where I think we have that free reign, so that we can then, use whatever we can. So it's like, the mindfulness, whatever we're thinking and feeling is attracting more of the same, that kind of stuff. Because that's my understanding of it. So it's like a mix. It's like a beautiful, intricate, divine mix, if that makes sense. That my understanding of that I come to that conclusion because I've given so many readings over the years, to people from all walks of life, like literally the people out on the streets to really well-known people who are out on our TVs and whatever. But it's like, what I realized is people, it doesn't matter where you are on that thread. we are still having the same experiences as humans. So that taught me such a great deal. And I realized after speaking to all of those people that it made sense to me personally, because people would ask me that quite a lot. And I'd ask myself, I'm like, I don't know. Like, if I don't know the answer to something, I'm happy to say I don't know. Because I think it's better to just be honest and say, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Instead of trying to make some bullshit up. Because we can all sense bullshit and we can all feel it, right? Yeah. And the thing is, for me, my face says it all. So if I'm not saying it, my face will say it. And I can't help that. It's like something I wish I wasn't able to do, but it's like, I can tell. My face is just like, yeah. But that's my sort of perception of it. Because there's some people have been through some events in their lives, which I don't feel they would manifest. They would not naturally attract that in, and like as being a child and stuff. So I feel like it's like a soul thing, a predetermined experience. But then to get to that next one, but the thing is, we're not taught how to get from scenario A to scenario B. We're purposely not taught that, because if we was to unleash all of these amazing creative gifts, we wouldn't be in that system which keeps us suppressed. So that's why I feel it's not taught widely. There are books on it, but it's not like at school we're encouraged to go and read about all these great people who've written these incredible stories. And I mean, the best way I've found a lot of answers to is through mythology and how these stories have been passed down. And there's a book I read recently, and I highly, highly recommend this book. Especially to your female fans, because this book was life-changing for me. And it's a book I've been reading whilst we've been on lockdown. And it's been around for years, by the way. And it's called Running with Wolves. And I'll have to get you the information on that. And maybe put it in the comment box, because I can't remember how you spell it.
What's it called?
I'm just going to bend down a bit to get my phone. Sorry, this looks a bit.
Okay.
Right, I'm going to show you, because it's on my Audible. It's on Audible, but it's also in written form, and it's different. There are different versions of it. So let me just go in and show you.
And the book is called Running with Wolves?
I'm just going to, Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Oh, okay.
By I think I need an eye test. And I already wear contact lenses. I can't bloody see that. Clarissa Pinkola. I can never pronounce her name, so I don't want to do her an injustice. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. So it is on Audible, and it's on like Amazon or wherever. But it's called Women Who Run with Wolves. The Wolves. That to me has been a profound book. It has been life-changing, and this is very, very recent. So with my answers to your questions of why am I here, that's very much changing at the moment since reading this book, because some things are working again in my bones. And she talks about that, and about the female lineage and how that's been written out of history. Well, the word history, obviously, if you take it apart, reads his story. It's like, I just think we've been absolutely fooled for years and years. And it's always whatever the agenda is at the time of history as to whatever has been written. So do we ever know the truth? But I do believe we can absolutely access some of this information. And like, I'm a big fan of reading really old books. So like sourcing, like I love Mark Twain's books. So like sourcing these old books, because there's so much wisdom in there. Yeah. You know, and so for me, that's where I find a lot of joy, is from reading the more like old school books. Yeah. So
we could talk all day, but I do have other things going on. So
I
want to ask you, you know, right now, given it still blows me away that Neil Donald Walsh offered to write your foreword. You said, "I'm sorry, that position's filled." And he wrote the afterword for your book, and you didn't publish the book.
The afterword, Ken, is beautiful.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah,
he's
honestly,
one of my favorite people on this planet. So, you know, but you know, let's talk about just real quick, so we can start wrapping up here. Cindy put it in the comments. Women Who Run with Wolves.
That's the one. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah. So let's talk about right now, this moment in time and history. I don't know that there's another another time ever in the history of the world where literally the entire world is in this lockdown, fear, just, what do you say to somebody who is stuck right now, paralyzed? There's a lot of people paralyzed with fear.
Yeah.
I think that it's mainly media driven. That's just my personal opinion. But what do you say if somebody is stuck? Maybe they're broke, they can't pay their bills, they can't eat, maybe they can't, whatever. It's a bad situation for a lot of people. What do you say to them to bring some hope to those people, to help them get through this?
Well, firstly, we're all in it together. So we're all learning, aren't we? Like, we're all on this experience. We're all having to change. That's one thing, it's changing all of us. I mean, what I will say is, when it first happened, I went into complete fear. So I'm just going to speak from a relative place, right? Because it's not like I've got all my shit together and like I'm sat meditating and singing around in the garden. I'm not doing that. I do now and again. I really just, and then I feel guilty and I'm like, oh, I don't need to, what I would say is this, given from experience, because this has tested me to my core as well, Ken, it really has.
Yeah.
Because this is when it makes me question everything I've ever learned. Because, of course, if we're using the laws of attraction, then how the hell are we meant to change something that's outside of us, right? So, but we can absolutely use these things. So let me take it to the beginning. So this is one of the things I've done to help me have some sanity in this. So this isn't like I've got the answers, like everything's going to massively change. But what I will tell you is this is helping me right now. So hopefully this will give you some comfort too. So the first thing I did is I switched off all of the news sources. So I think I mentioned this to you last time we was on a call. We did this before, didn't we, with Glenn on the call? And it wasn't long after that. I think I'd mentioned to you, I was really going through this fear myself. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And so one of the things that I kept doing was watching the news briefings at the same day. But when you're watching something and focused on something so negative and a lot of misinformation, because that's one thing that we're all being taught is misinformation at the minute and not knowing what the hell to believe,
right?
Then that creates a group energy field, and it absolutely does. So if you've got many people watching a media source at the same time, you are energetically brought into that, which can be extremely difficult to get out of at times. And that can be honestly one of the reasons why you're feeling so crap, because that is an actual energy in itself. Stop doing that. If you want to know what's going on, watch it at a different time. Like here, they do the news briefings at the same time, and I've refused to do it. And I've been telling all my friends, all my family, everybody, don't watch it at that time. Because when I've watched it, it felt like a smothering feeling energetically where I couldn't get out of it. And normally I can get out. There's different tools and stuff that I've learned over the years to use, and none of them were working. So I felt like there's got to be something else. And it is an energetic thing. So please don't watch when they're putting news briefings out, even if it's half an hour or an hour after it's been out. Whatever you need to do whatever you need to be updated on, for sure, but not at that same time.
Right.
So that's one of the first things, because this is an energy thing going on.
So remove yourself from that energy field
at the time it's broadcast.
Right.
Because watch what happens. Try it. So you watch one after, watch one during, because this is something I've noticed. I'm very sensitive to this stuff. I don't
watch it at all. Period.
Just because like many people are feeling like drawn into watching it, because we're all. Yeah, I mean, really, it's quite an achievement to keep all of these people in lockdown. When I say achievement, I'm kind of being sarcastic in a sense of, how the hell have they ever done that? But anyway, keeping it positive, just moving that aside.
Yeah.
So another thing, what I don't recommend is watching a lot of conspiracy stuff. The reason I don't recommend that right now is because that can take you down a rabbit hole. I personally have been down that rabbit hole for 3 weeks at a time and literally questioned every single thing in a not healthy way, thinking that, aliens everywhere. And there might be, but, it's a whole other story. I don't recommend it for a few reasons, because whilst we're in this, it's a very oppressive energy at the moment.
Yeah.
So and especially when you're feeling sensitive, a lot of us are very naturally sensitive to other people and to worldly events. So we're going to feel that. It's going to feel like, it feels like a bit of an oppression, a lot of an oppression anyway. So the best way we can relieve that is to, one, don't tune in when it's live, when they're giving news briefings. Don't do that. Whatever you need. I mean, really, what I would personally recommend is not to tune in at all unless you absolutely need to, which, you know, again, I can't say for everybody. I mean, like here, I need to know when the schools are opening and stuff, but I would find that out anywhere, right? And if I didn't, then I'd get in trouble and whatever. Anyway, so it's like, do what feels right for you. I can't tell you as an individual what's going to work, but I can tell you what helps alleviate it. So energetically, you want to be looking after your energy, like really, in a really down-to-earth way. So you want to be opening your windows, clearing your house, like get some order in your life. This is a great time to get stuff done. So the more you can get organized in your home, and I'm not quoting Marie Kondo, that is a great book, by the way, and that did help me, but it's not necessarily about getting caught up in that either, but keep yourself moving, as in get yourself organized. The more you can organize your home, I feel like it's organizing your life in a sense. So that's where we use what you can where you've got control over at the moment, and as I say, at the moment. So organize your home. The next thing is your mentality, because it can be really difficult if you're feeling positive and then you have a conversation with somebody and they're really going through it and feeling like really scared and stuff. It can bring up this like guilt feeling if you're feeling happy. And so a lot of people are experiencing that now. And please know that a lot of people are experiencing it, because it's a whole new, all of this is new to us. So it's about really dealing with, as best as you can, your situation right now. So if you have lost your job, or if you're being furloughed or any of this, then what I would suggest you do, and honestly, such a good time to do this at the moment, is to give yourself some time away from your partner, unless you live on your own, then that's going to be a lot easier. But away from the dogs, the cats, whatever animals you got, people, anyone in your house, get away from that, because it can drive you crazy. So go somewhere no one's going to bother you. Make it clear that's your time. Right. Even if it's half an hour, get yourself a pen and paper. I'm a big fan of this, because this is going to help process some of this energy stuff you're feeling, and write down everything you're feeling. The more you can get that out of your mind and written down, and the reason I say to write it is because it's energetically removing that from all of this crap that's swirling around in the head. We can move it onto paper. It's like really old practice to do it, but it's really powerful. So by just writing out how you're feeling and all your fears and stuff, it's not for anyone to read, it's just for you. It helps get you from your head and get you into that clear space again. But do this regularly, like do this daily, seriously, 10, 15 minutes, depending how fast you're writing or what you've got to write about. But get it all written down, because it will help give you some sanity. It truly will. So I think having really good alone time in that sense is going to help just give you that control, right? So it's about getting that control back where you can. Yeah. Okay. Because when you get these thoughts that are going through your mind and this fear, and you're unplugging from that by not watching the news sources, by not being distracted from family, dogs, cats, God knows what else. I'm speaking from experience, right? Because kids, the lot. And having that space to just write everything down, like, and it doesn't have to, you write anything you want. Like it could be, I'm really concerned. I don't know what we're going to do for a minute. I don't know. But by getting that out is then opening a space where then you can come up with ideas. But while you've got that swirling around in your head, there's no space for it. So by doing it, it's quite a powerful exercise to do. And it doesn't take long, because I like to be real down to earth. We especially if you're in a house with a family and you're all on top of each other and you're all absolutely doing each other's heads in, which a lot of people are feeling that. And, there's a lot of people that are really enjoying that time together, but there's also a lot of people that aren't, or people with both. So it's doing your best you can, but also not beating yourself up is a huge thing, because I think there's a lot of pressure. Like it's almost like we're expected to, like everybody's expected to just comply with everything and do as we're told. And if you're naturally rebellious, you're going to feel that inside of you where you don't want to break the law. You don't want to start being, an idiot, but there's that feeling inside of you where it's like, but this doesn't feel right. And so listen to that, like listen to what's coming up in you, because that could be you finding your voice. Maybe you've never actually had that before, where the first time you've actually spoken from that feeling inside of you, where you're able to say and speak what you actually are really feeling. and not holding back. And I don't mean about just ringing people up and, you know, starting to spray off whatever you're feeling, but it's an opportunity to look at it, because we literally have all been put on pause at the minute. So it's looking at it and looking at the pros and cons of it, going, well, how can we best deal with it? So the more you can get some order and organization in your life, I think that's going to help you more. If you can get out into nature, and I know this isn't possible for everybody, it depends where you are, depends where you're based, and depends what the rules are, right? But getting out and moving and walking, leave your phone, whatever, just leave the technology and get yourself out and go and walk in nature, because that can be one of the best things you can do. And it's the basics, I know that, but it really does change the energy. And when you're shacked up with your family and your partner or your wife or your husband that you love dearly, but you could kill them at that moment, you're literally going to kill them, but you're like, oh my God, it's important to let off some steam. And it's okay to, you know, talk to your family, have those conversations. This is a really, you know, it's a prominent time at the moment, because, you know, we're seeing all these reports of wildlife thriving. You know, the earth is thriving, it doesn't need us on it. It really doesn't. I mean, it can thrive on its own. And it's about us recognizing perhaps of how we're treating that, but at the same time, how we're treating ourselves. Do we want to rush back into a life that wasn't actually working for us anyway? So it's asking these questions, but using this time and being very clear and putting some boundaries up with your family and saying, I need this time for me.
So
I don't mind.
Listen, we got to wrap up. I apologize. So I had to interrupt you, and I apologize.
That's all right, I'm not.
You're spitting gold, and I love it. So if somebody wanted to, you told me that you have Jolene.com, which blows my mind. That's your website. Is that where everybody could go to follow you?
So, yeah, I mean, that's my website. That's the one I've been using, obviously, whilst I was doing all the readings. It's still there. Yeah, it's all still there. So you can absolutely go and check that out. The main one that I'm working on, the main project, it tells you on there anyway. It says about me and what I'm doing. The main one is rawrealbeing.com, which is a magazine, and it's an online platform as well. So we interview guests. That's, you know, like we were saying about Glenn, and he was our number one. He was our first. I've got it here. Brought my little. There you go. So he was. Yeah. So this was the very first.
Let me go full screen. Hang on.
This was the very first issue we did.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was December 2017. So that was issue 1.
Awesome.
And we're on issue 13. We've got Anita Morjani. She's an incredible woman. She's our main guest for the next issue, which is out next week. So the whole point of the platform of Raw Real Being, it's a magazine. It's also, like I said, it's an online platform, and it's fairly new, but it's growing very, very quickly. Because what I wanted to do was to share people who've got incredible stories. That's the whole point of it. And it doesn't matter how many followers you've got. It doesn't matter if you're a best-selling author. Like, we have people from all walks of life who've got a really beautiful story to share. And that's my passion at the moment. That's the thing I'm very much working on. And that's what I'm doing. So, like, we are always on the lookout for people who've got incredible stories. I tend to, like, pick out people who I feel is something that, you know, we can share with our audience, where they can share, like, you know, like you're doing about the breakthroughs and things like that. So on ours, the premise around that is around, you know, what about people being really raw and vulnerable, like in their what they're experienced, and perhaps sharing things with us that can really help us together. So it's very much around a we mentality, and not a these are our gurus and you're lesser than. So all of the people that I bring on board, they're people that I absolutely adore. And having been in been in the industry for quite a long time, it's like you get to see behind the scenes. And I felt like there was just a lot of people that I absolutely love and who, you know, would love to share. So that's the whole point of it. So there's all kinds of different things in there. My Jolene website, was very much around my own projects, right? So it's
I've got rawrealbeing.com. That's the website address, right?
And the magazine's free, right? So you don't need to sign up. You don't need to sign up for it. It'll take you to ISU to read it. But yeah, I mean, excuse me, it's free. I didn't want to put a sign up on there because I didn't want there to be any barriers or blocks. You know, I wanted people to get hold of it, and that actually worked really well. So, like, we've got, I think it's 74 countries now with that's people. Awesome. It's just in one language, obviously, at the moment. But I mean, that's just all being, like, I haven't had, you know, it's not like I've had a vision board and gone, right, I'm doing this, this, and this. This is just, it's been a real passion project of mine.
That's
And
so awesome. That's so awesome. Jolene,
thank
thank you.
you, Ken.
I love your energy. I think you're incredible. I'm
Bless
so
you.
grateful to Glenn for introducing
Oh,
us.
I love Glenn. He's awesome.
He's incredible.
He really is. Yeah.
He's God broke the mold when he made Glenn.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So
yes, thank you.
everybody go follow Jolene on Facebook. Are you on Instagram and Twitter?
Yeah, so my Jolene one is Jolene UK. So Jolene UK. And the Raw Real Being one is all of the hashtags are at Raw Real Being.
Okay. Awesome. Jolene, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. Don't hang up on me. Don't hang up on me, but I'm going to end the live stream. So thank you to everyone who watched, shared this out. Thank you for everything. You're awesome. Thank you, Jolene.
Thank you.